What would you say is the number one thing that you've learned over the past, 30 plus years working in real estate and working in real estate investments? What's the most important thing you've learned?
Uh, the most important thing is there are properties that will never lease. There's prop or I don't want to say ever sell, but ever lease. I was at an auction. Actually, it was an office building one day years ago, and I'm dealing with a investor client of mine, and he asked the question. It was a nice office building. Um, is it possible that you could never lease this? And I had to think about that for a second. And the answer is, well, yeah. Um, and part two of that is there's a second part to that. Just because you might be able to lease a building, it may not be economically feasible to lease a building because the cost to lease the building alone will not, the rents you can get will not justify the cost to lease it. A little bit more appropriate in an office building environment than a warehouse environment, but to give you an example, I'll give you an example in an office environment because it's easier to see, and that is if you have an empty office building and the tenant says I need new improvements, I'll give you a 5-year lease, new improvements, and the rent's $20 a square foot. The improvements alone could cost you $70 a square foot to do, number one. And
Right.
at a 10 cap, that's $7 a foot. A building could cost to operate $10 a square foot. Now you're at 17, and then you have brokerage commissions that could be 10. So now you're at 18, $19 a square foot just to pay, and you haven't bought the building yet. So that is possible, and not as much as in industrial, but it isn't possible in industrial if the building, if you have an environmental problem, you got some kind of problem that's really expensive to fix. So that's something you really have to pay attention to. And the last thing is you shouldn't put your real estate on autopilot. You should watch it. Go visit it once in a while. You never know what you're going to see. Go visit it once in a while. Pay attention to property management reports. Look at you want to know why there are aberrations when things crop up. When you have a problem like we're just going through with this COVID thing, but the first dozen phone calls I got were people who said they can't afford to pay the rent. You still got to pay the mortgage, so you got to deal with that kind of stuff. You can't be blind to it.
This content was created by commercialrealestate.com. Access our community, investment databases, training, and live events by visiting www.commercialrealestate.com.